Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping right in today to a conflict that's been incredibly complex. It went from this sort of simmering shadow war, then bang, a direct high stakes clash.
And then almost strangely back into the shadows,
Mm.
but maybe even, well, colder and more dangerous.
Exactly. So our mission today is to really cut through all that noise, give you a fast track to understanding the Iran-Israel war, specifically looking at, say, 2023 through to 2025.
Yeah, we'll unpack the timeline, the verified stuff, but also dig into the political drama behind it all. And the defense technology is fascinating here.
Right. We want you to get those key insights, maybe some surprising facts, so you can really grasp what's been going on in, well, a critically important part of the world.
Okay, so context first. This isn't something that just popped up overnight.
No, definitely not.
For decades, you've had this intense rivalry. Iran backing proxies, think Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis pushing against Israel.
And Israel pushing back, often with airstrikes in places like Syria, hitting Iranian assets, sometimes scientists. A long, long shadow war.
That's the backdrop. Persistent, kind of low grade, but always there.
So October 7th, 2023. Obviously, the horrific Hamas attack and the start of the Gaza war. How did that specific event change this already tense dynamic beyond Gaza itself, I mean?
Well, it was like throwing gasoline on the fire. A truly seismic event. Israel's massive response in Gaza fundamentally shifted the whole regional picture.
Okay.
And almost immediately, from October 23 into early 24, you saw this rapid escalation on those proxy fronts we mentioned.
Right, like the Houthis in the Red Sea.
Exactly. Suddenly, they're hitting ships, disrupting global trade, a major strategic choke point.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time up north, Hezbollah and Israel are exchanging fire across the border pretty much daily.
Yeah.
Serious clashes.
And Israel is hitting Iranian targets in Syria more often, too, right? The IRGC specifically.
Yeah, intensified strikes on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps targets there.
Yeah.
It really felt like, a pressure cooker just getting hotter and hotter, closer to boiling over.
And boil over it did in 2024. That shadow war stepped out into the light, became direct. And it seems like April 1st was the trigger.
That's the moment, yes, April 1st. Israeli F-35s hit the Iranian consulate annex building in Damascus.
A consulate annex. That sounds significant.
Hugely significant.
Yeah.
Not just because it's technically diplomatic ground, a clear violation of those norms, but who they hit.
Okay.
Key commanders from the IRGC's Quds Force, their elite external operations unit, including a very senior leader, General Mohammad Reza Zahedi.
Wow. So hitting a diplomatic site and taking out top commanders, that's a massive escalation. What was the immediate fallout politically? Did the U.S. see this coming?
Well, it was definitely a major provocation. And yes, reports indicate the U.S. privately and quite strongly warned Israel that Iran would respond. You simply can't kill a general of that rank on diplomatic soil and expect Iran to, well, just let it go.
And that response wasn't long in coming. April 13th, 14th, Iran launches this. Just unprecedented direct attack on Israel. The scale alone was staggering.
It really was something else. We're talking approximately 350 projectiles launched from Iran itself.
350.
Yeah, about 120 ballistic missiles, over 30 cruise missiles, and more than 170 of those Shahed 136 drones.
Good grief. What were they aiming at?
Specific Israeli military sites. Nevatim Air Base was one, the intelligence facility on Mount Hermon another. It was a clear attempt to saturate and overwhelm Israel's defenses.
But, and this is the incredible part, the actual outcome of that massive attack was, well, not what Iran might have hoped for. This is where the defense tech really shines, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is where it gets really interesting from a tech perspective. Israel's multi-layered defense system was put to the ultimate test.
You mean things like Arrow and David's Sling?
Exactly. Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 and Arrow 3 was critical here, making those exo-atmospheric intercepts, hitting ballistic missiles way up high outside the atmosphere.
Neutralizing them before they even got close.
Precisely. Minimizing risk on the ground. Then you had David's Sling for medium-range threats, Patriots as well. But it wasn't just Israel acting alone.
No, this turned into a real coalition effort, didn't it? The U.S., UK, France, even Jordan, surprisingly.
Crucial roles. F-35s, naval destroyers with missile defense capabilities, Eurofighter jets, all contributing to interception.
And the result, that reported 99% interception rate, which is just mind-boggling.
Almost unbelievable. Think about those Shahed drones. They're relatively slow, cheap, designed to come in large numbers, a swarm tactic.
Right, to soak up the expensive interception.
Exactly, to force the defender to expend valuable resources. But the integrated system held, and you can't forget the intelligence piece.
Yeah.
U.S. Space Command providing early warning, J-STARS radar planes, tracking launches, plus intelligence sharing with Gulf states.
Hmm.
It was all networked together.
So the sheer technological and cooperative success basically nullified this massive attack.
Pretty much. Damage was minimal, a few impacts at Nevatim reportedly, and tragically one child injured, but considering the scale of the attack, it was a huge demonstration of defensive capability.
A symbolic win for Israeli and allied tech. And the political side kept twisting too. We heard later about Jordan and Saudi Arabia secretly helping out.
Yeah, that was fascinating. Alongside, of course, intense global pressure on both sides to de-escalate immediately after.
So Iran attacks, defenses hold spectacularly. What does Israel do next? They had to respond, presumably.
They did respond on April 19th, but it was very, very calculated, a limited strike.
Limited how?
Reports suggest small drones, maybe air-launched missiles, hit a radar site near the Isfahan airbase, which is sensitive because it's near the Natanz nuclear facility.
Ah, near Natanz, so sending a message.
Exactly. Minimal actual damage reported. They likely used advanced Israeli tech IAI drones, perhaps, or standoff missiles like Spicy, known for precision.
So the message was, we can reach you, even sensitive sites, but we're choosing restraint for now.
Precisely. It signaled capability without going for a massive escalation. And interestingly, Iran publicly downplayed the whole incident.
To avoid having to retaliate again.
Seems likely. And behind the scenes, U.S. pressure was reportedly immense on Israel to keep the response limited, to prevent that slide into a full-blown regional war.
Okay, so that direct missile-on-missile phase was intense but brief. It ended. But the conflict didn't stop, did it? It just shifted back into this Cold War footing, but maybe even nastier as we look towards 2025.
That seems to be the case. The direct state-on-state strikes stopped, but the proxy fighting ramped up again, possibly even more intensely.
Like on the Lebanon border.
Yeah, the Hezbollah front. Near daily exchanges. Rockets, anti-tank missiles from Hezbollah, Israeli airstrikes in response. Significant damage, people displaced on both sides. It's a real grinding conflict there.
And the Houthis? Still active.
Still attacking Red Sea shipping,
Right.
which continues to draw retaliatory strikes from the U.S. and U.K. It's a persistent disruption to global trade.
And Syria, Iraq, still flashpoints.
Definitely. More Israeli strikes targeting IRGC shipments moving through Syria. And Iran-backed militias still occasionally targeting U.S. bases in the region. It's simmering across multiple fronts.
And alongside the kinetic stuff, there's been a rise in covert actions, right? Like cyber attacks.
Oh, absolutely. A major spike. Both sides hitting critical infrastructure, water systems, energy grids, financial institutions. It's a constant unseen battlefront.
Plus assassinations, sabotage.
Suspected Israeli operations targeting Iranian scientists, engineers involved in missile or nuclear programs, and alleged Iranian plots against Israeli or Jewish targets overseas, even using drones to attack ships. It's murky, deniable, but very active.
And perhaps the most worrying aspect looking into 2025, the nuclear program.
Yes, this is where the tension gets extremely high. Iran accelerating uranium enrichment, reportedly getting very close to that 90% weapons grade level.
Which crosses all sorts of red lines for Israel.
Absolutely. And Israel is responding by openly threatening military action against Iran's nuclear facilities. Meanwhile, the U.S. and the E3 UK, France, Germany are piling on diplomatic pressure, sanctions, trying to find an off-ramp. But it feels very precarious. No overt attack yet, but the rhetoric is sharp.
On top of that, you've got incidents at sea, in the air.
Yeah, close encounters between naval forces in the Med and Red Sea, drones being shot down, suspected Israeli strikes on Iranian naval assets, maybe near the Strait of Hormuz. It's this constant friction, this low-level conflict that always feels like it could ignite.
So looking back over this period, this evolution of the conflict, what stands out in terms of the defense technology? What are the big lessons learned?
Well, the first thing has to be the sheer dominance of integrated air and missile defense, A&Ds.
Right, that 99% interception rate speaks volumes.
It really does.
Yeah.
Systems like Arrow 3, David's Sling, Iron Dome for shorter range stuff, Patriot, Page-AD, and the ship-based systems like SM-3, SM-6, when layered and networked, they proved incredibly effective against a massive, complex attack.
And we're even seeing things like Iron Beam, the laser system, getting fast-tracked.
Exactly. The economics of shooting down cheap drones with expensive missiles isn't sustainable long-term. So laser defenses, offering potentially much lower cost per shot, are getting a huge push.
Okay, what else? Drones seem unavoidable now.
Ubiquitous. Used by everyone, for everything. Iranian Shaheds for swarming attacks, Israeli Harap or hero loitering munitions, suicide drones, Elbit's orbiter for surveillance. They're used for attack, recon as decoys. It's a drone war, alongside everything else.
And you mentioned the difference between ballistic missiles and cruise missiles earlier.
Yeah, ballistic missiles fly high and fast, easier for systems like Arrow to track and intercept far out. Cruise missiles hug the terrain, fly lower, slower. Making them harder to detect early requires different sensor types and interceptors. It's a constant game of cat and mouse.
What about that invisible battlefield, cyber and electronic warfare?
Still absolutely critical, often underreported, but hugely impactful. GPS jamming, disrupting communications, hacking into critical systems. It's a vital front.
And stealth technology, the F-35's role.
Key. The F-35I Adir, Israel's version, was reportedly used in that Damascus strike. Its stealth allows it to penetrate defended airspace. Plus, the use of standoff weapons missiles like Spicy C or Storm Shadow Scalp P used by allies lets aircraft strike targets from safer distances. Precision is paramount.
Lastly, naval warfare. Seems like new threats are emerging there too.
Definitely. You have advanced anti-ship missiles coming from Iran and the Houthis, testing ship defenses like CIWS Gatling guns, Sea Viper missiles, SM-2s, and the rise of cheap but effective drone boats, unmanned surface vessels packed with explosives adds another dangerous dimension, especially in choke points like the Red Sea or Strait of Hormuz.
Okay, so the tech is clearly evolving and shaping things, but let's pivot back to the political drama underlying all this. There's some huge unanswered questions, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. Loads of them.
Like Netanyahu's decision for the Damascus strike. Was that purely about deterrence against Iran, or was there a domestic political calculation, maybe bolstering his own standing at a difficult time?
It's a really debated point. Some analysts see it as a necessary, if risky, move to reestablish deterrence after months of proxy attacks. Others suggest, yeah, maybe the potential domestic political upside, looking strong against Iran, wasn't unwelcome. Hard to know for sure.
And on Iran's side, did they miscalculate with that massive April 13th barrage? Did they actually expect to cause more damage? Or was the global reaction, especially the Arab state cooperation with Israel, a surprise?
It's possible they might have underestimated the integrated defense capabilities, or perhaps the sheer scale was the message, and the lack of damage gave them an excuse not to escalate further. Internal pressures from hardliners demanding a strong response were almost certainly a factor too.
Then there's the U.S. role, walking that incredibly fine line, firmly defending Israel, providing that crucial support during the attack, but at the same time pushing really hard for de-escalation. You heard about Biden's reported frustrations with Netanyahu.
It was a masterclass in diplomatic tightrope walking, or maybe just a really tough spot to be in. Defend your ally, prevent a wider war that could drag in U.S. troops, manage conflicting pressures. Extremely difficult. Protecting U.S. personnel in Iraq and Syria was clearly a huge priority too.
And what about the Arab states? Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE. They have their own issues with Iran, so quiet cooperation with Israel makes sense strategically. But then you have the intense public anger over Gaza. How do they balance that? King Abdullah of Jordan was in a particularly tough spot.
It's an almost impossible balancing act. Sharing a threat perception of Iran pushes them towards quiet security cooperation with Israel. But the visibility of the Gaza conflict makes any overt alignment politically toxic domestically. Jordan being openly involved in shooting down Iranian drones was incredibly bold and risky for the king, highlighting how serious they viewed that threat.
And how much did the Gaza war itself act as the catalyst for this whole regional flare-up? Did Iran see October 7th and the aftermath as basically an opportunity?
It seems very likely it provided both cover and opportunity. The world's focus was on Gaza. It allowed Iran and its proxies to, let's say, test boundaries, increase pressure, maybe achieve strategic gains under the fog of that conflict. It certainly amplified the existing tensions.
Which brings us back to the biggest question looming over 2025, that nuclear threshold. If Iran keeps enriching uranium towards weapons grade, will Israel make good on its threats to strike their facilities? And what does the U.S. do then?
That's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? Israel has consistently said a nuclear Iran is an existential threat they cannot permit. If they believe Iran is about to cross the line, a preemptive strike seems, well, highly possible based on their stated doctrine.
And the consequences of that?
Unimaginable, really. It would ignite the region, likely draw on the U.S. in some capacity, shatter global energy markets. It's the scenario everyone wants to avoid, but it feels closer than ever.
So, just to recap, we've seen this Iran-Israel conflict morph dramatically. Decades of shadow boxing, proxy wars. Then suddenly that brief, incredibly tense direct exchange in April 2024.
Yeah, a moment that really showcased just how advanced air defense tech has become, but also the complex web of international politics and pressure that contained it, just barely.
But it didn't end there. It snapped back into this Cold War phase, arguably more dangerous because it's playing out on so many fronts, simultaneously proxies, covert ops, cyber, and now this nuclear cliff edge we're teetering on into 2025.